Dr. Carole Lieberman, forensic psychiatrist, expert witness who has consulted and testified in hundreds of criminal and civil cases nationwide, including police brutality and high-profile cases. She's also worked as a 3-time Emmy-honored TV personality, who's appeared on Oprah, The Today Show, Good Morning America, CNN, Fox News, HLN, ET, ABC, CBS, NBC, and many more. And she's here today to talk about how will America react to the Derek Chauvin trial verdict. How is America reacting this morning to this verdict? We welcome in Dr. Lieberman. Dr. Lieberman, always good to have you on the show. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Well, you know, we got the verdict yesterday, later in the day, and Derek Chauvin, the police officer who had put his knee on the neck of George Floyd, found guilty on all 3 counts and has yet to be sentenced. Could go from as few as 12 and a half years as a first-time offender to the rest of his life, for all intents and purposes. What was your take on the verdict yesterday? How do we process this? Because there's a whole lot of, I think, lessons to be learned from this particular verdict that talks a lot about where America is at right now. Your thoughts about that this morning?
Yes. Well, you know, as soon as the jury came back after 10 hours, I knew that it didn't bode well for Chauvin, because what that showed was that they were reacting, or they're just deciding more on an emotional basis rather than the facts. The facts are rather complicated. There were so many experts, and, you know, it was complicated medical matters, and they didn't ask for anything to be replayed or, you know, anything like that. So I think that the lesson to be learned is that juries, especially in high-profile trials, should be sequestered. These juries were influenced from day one. First of all, there should have been a change of venue. But these jurors were influenced by day one from all the media coverage, particularly showing people in the streets, you know, getting ready to have riots in cities, not only in Minneapolis, but in cities all over America. And that is a very, no one wants to make a decision that's going to spark riots all over the country.
You know, it's fascinating to me, because I saw yesterday there were celebrations in various parts of the country. And I'm thinking, is that the way we want to conduct? Now, again, have there been cases where trials have not gone the way they should, maybe, or the way we thought they should? Absolutely. But does that then give us a right as the public to go out and, you know, have some kind of illegal action as a result of that? In this case, that did not happen because the trial went the way that many people wanted it to go. But by the same token, and I feel the same way about that as I do about elections, you ought not have people breaking into the Capitol. You know, they ought to be held to account, which they are right now. But I guess what, you know, we're looking at this is a person, and I asked this question of a couple of lawyers yesterday, is a person innocent until proven guilty still in the United States, or are you guilty until you've been stamped guilty by the public, and then you're stamped guilty by the people at the trial to make sure that justice is done? I mean, it gets a little bit kind of incoherent here for me. Your thoughts?
Yes, backwards. I think that because media has grown, you know, in terms of not just the regular media, but also social media and so on, that there is something, you know, it's much more sensational to think or say or riot or protest that if you think that the person is guilty. And so, you know, that makes it better media. You know, there's more to cover, or it's more, you can attract more viewers or listeners, you know, if you're talking about the person being guilty. But of course it's wrong. I mean, not only were there these pictures of you know, people in the streets and so on, but they found out, the jurors found out that the family already received $27 million, which, you know, is essentially an admission of guilt by the city. We have Maxine Waters, who was outrageously inappropriate and telling people that if it's not guilty, then they should be more confrontational against the police. And then also during the trial, with the unsequestered jury, there was the Dante Wright shooting and Adam Toledo in Chicago. And Biden, I mean, yes, theoretically, the jury was supposed to have been sequestered when Biden, in the last day when Biden came out. But who knows if the information really got back to the jury. And, I mean, for the president of the United States, or for that matter, a congresswoman, to come out and basically tell the jury what they should do is outrageous.
Yeah, President Biden basically came out and said it was a murder in full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see systemic racism. And I mean, if you're a law enforcement agent out there, and maybe the president didn't mean to say it this way, but it looks like kind of a blanket tattoo for every law enforcement person in this country. And he went on to warn, it's not enough. We can't stop here. We're going to deliver real change and reform. We can and we must do more to reduce the likelihood that tragedies like this will ever happen again. The last line was maybe the one thing that, he would have said that I probably agreed with. But, we watch politicians pander to these moments, and it's disgusting. I mean, you look at who was it? Gavin Newsom came out and said, well, if he'd have been the same color as me, he'd still be alive. I mean, this pandering, instead of trying to bring us together, instead of trying to get away from this whole racial thing, is really kind of disgusting from where I'm sitting in terms of the politicians' involvement. And every one of them tries to jump out on the stage there and pander to these people, these people being all Americans. Your thoughts?
Yes. And, I think now every police officer will have a bounty on his head. George Floyd's family got $27 million. Can I provoke some cop to do something to me and or to somebody, on the street in my neighborhood? And it's amazing that we have people joining the ranks of police. I mean, it's such a dangerous, it's so much more dangerous these days. It's not as, there was always the danger, of course, that it's a dangerous job, but it is so much more dangerous now. And we really need the police. And
right.
Really what needs to happen is that there needs to be recertification of police every 1 or 2 or 3 years, psychological recertification. Just like they need to be recertified on their guns, they should be recertified in terms of their psychological state.
Yeah.
Because they see so much violence that it's understandable that they would develop PTSD or other kinds of problems that in that split second might affect their judgment.
Exactly right. I think I totally agree with you that there ought to be updates constantly. It's like, I hate to equate it to something quite as trite, but you have in-service days at schools to get more and more information, be a better teacher. You should have in-service kinds of things, and I'm sure they do have ongoing education, but you're talking about things here that affect their judgment potentially and all that, and I think that is something that's very, very important here to make sure that we are getting the best policing possible and the fairest policing possible that can be had out there. And if there are some bad apples, then you weed them out of the entire patch.
Yes,
Dr. Lieberman, Dr. Lieberman, always good having you aboard. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Where can people find out more on some of the things you're thinking about? Well,
they could go to my Twitter, which is at Dr. Carole MD, at DrCarole MD, or one of my websites is, my forensic psychiatrist website is expertwitnessforensic.psychiatrist.com.
There you go. Dr. Lieberman, we look forward to talking to you again very soon. Thanks for joining us this morning here on WSBA.
Very welcome.